On a Thursday evening in June of 2011, the Missouri River decided it was done being patient. The levee at mile marker 614 inches, Atchison County, Missouri, didn't break all at once. It started with a seep, a thin line of water pushing through the compacted earth like a whisper nobody wanted to hear. By midnight, the whisper had become a roar. By 2 a.m., 14 feet of river water was moving across 6,000 acres of prime farmland at walking speed, swallowing everything in its path. The National Guard arrived at dawn. The Army Corps of Engineers arrived 2 hours later. They brought pumps, big ones, diesel-powered centrifugal pumps rated at 12,000 gallons per minute each. 4 of them, mounted on flatbed trailers, each one costing more than most houses in the county. They set up on the high ground near the grain elevator on Route 136 and fired them up. And one by one, they choked. The floodwater wasn't clean river water. It was a soup of mud, corn stalks, fence wire, dead livestock, fuel oil from overturned tanks, and the thick Missouri clay that had been the foundation of every farm in the county for 100 years. The centrifugal pumps were designed for water, not for this. The first pump seized after 90 minutes, impeller jammed with wire and debris. The second lasted 4 hours before the intake screen collapsed under the pressure of compacted mud. The third overheated when the cooling system clogged. The fourth was still running, but at maybe 30% capacity, struggling, screaming, the diesel engine laboring like a man trying to breathe through a wet towel. Captain David Mercer of the Army Corps stood on the levee remnant and stared at the water still rising. Behind him, $480,000 worth of pumping equipment was sitting dead or dying. In front of him, 14 families were trapped on the second floors of their farmhouses, waiting for rescue boats that couldn't navigate the debris field. The county roads were gone. The bridges were gone. The cell towers were gone. The power had been out since midnight. Mercer was 34 years old, West Point graduate, 2 tours in Afghanistan. He'd built forward operating bases in Helmand Province, constructed bridges under fire, managed logistics for 3,000 troops in conditions that would make most engineers quit. But he'd never seen anything like Atchison County, Missouri, in June of 2011. The water was still coming. Not fast, but steady, relentless, the kind of patient destruction that doesn't care about deadlines or equipment specifications or military rank. Mercer got on the satellite phone and called his commanding officer in Omaha. "We need bigger pumps," he said. "The centrifugals can't handle the debris load." "How long?" his CO asked. Mercer looked at the water. 48 hours, maybe. There was a pause on the line. "The forecast says another crest in 36. Mercer didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew what that meant. That's when Floyd Hessler showed up. Floyd was 81 years old and had farmed 320 acres in Atchison County since 1954. When he came home from Korea with a Purple Heart, a steel plate in his left shin, and a deep, permanent suspicion of anyone who wore a uniform and told him what to do, he drove a 1,978 Ford F-250 that had more rust than paint, and he pulled a flatbed trailer that carried something Captain Mercer had never seen before. It was a pump, but not like any pump Mercer knew. It was massive, cast iron. The housing alone was the size of a washing machine. It sat on a steel frame that looked hand-welded, with a drive shaft connected to what appeared to be a tractor PTO coupling. The intake was a 10-inch pipe with no screen, just an open mouth like a cannon barrel pointed at the ground. Behind the pump, on the same trailer, sat the thing that would power it, a 1,938 Allis-Chalmers WC tractor. The WC was not a pretty machine. It had been orange once, maybe, but now it was the color of old pennies and dried blood. The fenders were dented. The radiator cap was a coffee can lid held on with baling wire. The seat was a piece of plywood bolted to the frame with a horse blanket folded on top. Floyd backed the trailer up to the water's edge, unhitched it, and started unloading chain. Captain Mercer walked over. He was polite. He was trained to be polite. "Sir, we appreciate you coming out, but we've got military-grade pumps here, and they can't handle the debris load, I don't think." Floyd didn't look up from his chain. He was connecting the pump's drive shaft to the WC's PTO. "Your pumps are centrifugal," Floyd said, voice flat, not angry, just stating a fact, like telling someone the temperature. "Yes, sir," Mercer said. "Centrifugal pumps move clean water," Floyd said. "They spin it. Anything solid in the water hits the impeller and jams. You know that." "We're aware of the limitation," Mercer said carefully. Floyd finished the connection and stood up. His back cracked. He was 81 years old and moved like it, but his hands were steady and his eyes were sharp. "This here is a trash pump," Floyd said. "Positive displacement. Doesn't spin the water. Pushes it. Doesn't care what's in it. Mud, wire, corn stalks, dead chickens. Doesn't matter. It pushes everything through." "Where did you get it?" Mercer asked. "Built it," Floyd said. 1967, after the last big flood. Used a Fairbanks-Morse pattern from 1920 and cast the housing at the foundry in Rockport. The impeller is a helical screw, not a centrifugal fan. 6-inch clearance between the screw and the housing. You could put a baseball through it and it would come out the other side. Mercer looked at the pump, then at the tractor, then at Floyd. "That tractor is from 1938, he said. Floyd nodded. "Same year my father bought this land. Sir, with respect, my pumps are rated at 12,000 gallons per minute. What's this rated at?" Floyd almost smiled. "About 3,000 gallons a minute. Maybe 3,500 if the WC is feeling generous. But here's the thing, Captain. Your pumps are rated at 12,000 gallons of clean water. In this water, they're rated at 0. Because they're sitting over there with their impellers jammed and their screens collapsed and their engines overheated. My pump is rated at 3,000 gallons of anything, and anything is what we've got." Mercer was quiet for a moment. 3 of his 4 pumps were dead. The 4th was dying. The water was still rising. 14 families were waiting. He looked at the rusted Allis-Chalmers WC one more time. "Can you start it?" he asked. Floyd climbed up on the plywood seat, pulled the choke, and pressed the starter button. The WC turned over once, twice. On the 3rd revolution, the engine caught. It didn't roar. It didn't scream. It made a sound like an old man clearing his throat after a long sleep. A slow, heavy, patient rumble that vibrated the trailer and made the chain rattle on the steel frame. Floyd let it warm up for 2 minutes. Then he engaged the PTO. The pump started turning. Slowly at first, the helical screw inside the cast-iron housing began to pull. The 10-inch intake pipe, sitting in 3 feet of brown floodwater, began to drink. And it drank everything. The water came through brown and thick, full of clay and debris. Corn stalks, fence wire, a dead cat, a shoe, a kitchen chair leg, a section of aluminum siding from someone's house. The pump didn't care. The helical screw pushed it all through the 10-inch discharge pipe and out the other side, 200 feet away, back toward the river channel. 3,000 gallons a minute, not 12,000, not even close to what the military pumps could do on paper. But 3,000 gallons a minute of actual water actually moving was infinitely more than 0 gallons a minute of theoretical capacity sitting in a seized machine. The difference between theoretical and actual. Floyd understood that difference because he'd lived his entire life on the actual side of it. He'd never had the luxury of theoretical. When your pump needs to work, it needs to work with whatever comes through the pipe, not the clean water in the engineering textbook, but the mud and the wire and the dead things and the clay that the world actually sends you. The military pumps were designed by engineers who knew everything about fluid dynamics and nothing about Missouri floodwater. Floyd's pump was designed by a farmer who knew nothing about fluid dynamics and everything about what the river brings when it decides to visit. Mercer watched for 20 minutes without speaking. He watched the intake pipe swallow things that would have killed his centrifugal pumps in seconds: a section of barbed wire fence, a waterlogged 2x4, a child's bicycle that had been swept from someone's porch. The helical screw chewed through all of it. The discharge pipe spatted out the other side, 200 feet away, along with 3,000 gallons of brown water per minute. Mercer was a West Point man. He'd been taught to analyze problems, evaluate resources, and make decisions. He analyzed this problem in about 30 seconds. His pumps couldn't do the job, Floyd's pump could, and every minute he spent defending his equipment's theoretical superiority was a minute that 14 families were spending on the second floors of their houses, waiting. Then he got on the satellite phone. "Cancel the replacement pumps," he said. "I need something else. I need a flatbed truck, a welder, and as much 10-inch steel pipe as you can find. And I need someone who knows what a PTO coupling looks like." His CO was confused. "What are you doing?" "Learning," Mercer said. It was the first honest word he'd said in 2 days. Floyd ran the pump for 9 hours straight that first day. The WC never faltered. The engine temperature stayed at 185 degrees, right where a diesel likes to be. The oil pressure held steady at 40 pounds per square inches. The PTO ran smooth and constant, transmitting power from the tractor to the pump with the patience of machinery that was designed to work all day, every day, for decades. Floyd sat on the plywood seat and monitored everything by sound and feel. He didn't have gauges. The original gauges had stopped working sometime in the 1980s, and Floyd had never replaced them because he didn't need them. He could tell the engine temperature by the sound of the exhaust. He could tell the oil pressure by the vibration in the seat. He could tell the pump load by the pitch of the drive shaft. 73 years of mechanical empathy. That's what it was. Not skill, exactly. Not training. Empathy. The ability to feel what the machine was feeling and respond before the machine had to ask. At noon, Floyd's grandson, a 8-year-old named Tyler, who worked as an electrician in St. Joseph, showed up with sandwiches, a thermos of coffee, and 3 gallons of diesel. Tyler had also brought something else, a second pump, smaller than Floyd's but built on the same principle. A positive displacement trash pump that Tyler's father had built in 1989 using Floyd's original design for a drainage project on the family farm. This one was powered by a 1972 International Harvester 574 tractor that Tyler had been restoring in his garage for 2 years. They set up the second pump 400 yards downstream from the first. By evening, the water level in the flooded area had dropped 8 inches. Not much, but enough. Enough that the rescue boats could navigate. Enough that 14 families could be evacuated. Enough that the road to the grain elevator was passable again. The National Guard soldiers watched the 2 old tractors working in the fading light, the Allis-Chalmers and the International Harvester. One built before World War II, one built during Vietnam. Both running steady, both pushing brown water and debris through pipes that cost less than the lunch budget for 1 day of military operations. Captain Mercer stood next to Floyd as the sun went down. "Why did you build this?" Mercer asked. "In 1967. Floyd was quiet for a moment. He was watching the pump work, watching the water level drop. He had the look of a man who had seen this before and knew what it meant. "Because the last time the river came," Floyd said, "we had nothing. We stood on the high ground and watched everything go under, and there wasn't a damn thing we could do about it. The water came and the water stayed, and the water decided when it would leave. I decided that the next time I'd have something to say about it." He paused. "The Corps came in 67 too," he said. "They brought pumps. Big ones. Same kind you brought. And the same thing happened. The mud killed them. I watched 4 men in uniform stand around 4 dead pumps and make phone calls while the water kept rising." Floyd looked at Mercer. "Not unkindly. I don't blame you," he said. "You brought what you were trained to bring. But the river doesn't read your training manuals." Over the next 3 days, Floyd's pump moved an estimated 12 million gallons of floodwater. Tyler's pump moved another 6 million. Together, the two machines, one built in a farm shop in 1967, the other in a garage in 1989, did what $480,000 worth of military equipment could not. The Army Corps eventually brought in a massive Godwin dry prime pump, a self-priming unit designed for exactly this kind of work. It arrived on day 4. It cost $220,000 and was rated at 8,000 gallons per minute in high debris conditions. It worked beautifully. It was the right tool for the job. But for 3 days, while it was being transported from a depot in Kansas City, Floyd's homemade pump and a 73-year-old tractor had been the only thing standing between Atchison County and total loss. On the 5th day, when the water had receded enough that the pumps were no longer needed, Captain Mercer came to find Floyd. Floyd was sitting on the tailgate of his truck, eating a ham sandwich and drinking coffee from a thermos that was older than most of Mercer's soldiers. Mercer sat down next to him. He didn't say anything for a while. Then he said something that Floyd would remember for the rest of his life. "I've been an engineer for 12 years, Mercer said. "I've built bridges in Afghanistan. I've managed logistics for division-level operations. I have 2 degrees and more certifications than I can count. And in 3 days, an 81-year-old farmer with a homemade pump and a tractor from 1938 taught me more about problem-solving than all of it combined." Floyd took a sip of coffee. "It ain't about the machine," he said. "It's about knowing what the problem actually is. Your pumps were designed to move water. But the problem wasn't water. The problem was mud and wire and dead things and clay. You were solving the wrong problem with the right equipment. I was solving the right problem with the wrong equipment." He paused. "Turns out, solving the right problem with the wrong equipment beats solving the wrong problem with the right equipment. Every time." Mercer reached into his jacket and pulled out something. It was a challenge coin. Military tradition. A heavy brass medallion with the Army Corps of Engineers castle on one side and the words, "Essayons, let us try" on the other. He handed it to Floyd. "I'd like you to have this," he said. "It's given to people who exemplify what the Corps is supposed to be about." Floyd looked at the coin for a long time. He turned it over in his rough, scarred hands. Hands that had built a pump from a 1920 pattern in a farm shop. Hands that had maintained a tractor for 73 years. Hands that had held a rifle in Korea and a wrench in Missouri, and never once complained about either. He put the coin in his shirt pocket. "Thank you," he said. "That's a fine thing." Then he finished his sandwich, loaded his pump and his tractor onto the trailer, and drove home. The 1938 Allis-Chalmers WC is still on Floyd's farm. Floyd passed away in 2016, at the age of 86, in the same house where he was born. His grandson Tyler took over the farm and the tractor and the pump. In 2019, when the Missouri River flooded again, Tyler was ready. He drove to the levee with the same trailer, the same pump, and the same tractor. The WC started on the second try, just like it always had. The Army Corps was there too. This time, they brought the right pumps, self-priming, positive displacement, rated for high debris conditions. But they also brought something else. A request. Captain Mercer, now Colonel Mercer, had called Tyler 2 days before the flood crest and asked if he could bring the WC. Not because they needed it, technically. The Corps had the right equipment this time. But because, Mercer said, some lessons need to be visible. Some lessons need to be sitting right there on the levee where every young engineer can see them and remember that the most expensive machine in the world is worthless if it's solving the wrong problem. Tyler parked the WC on the levee next to the Corps' pumps. He didn't run it. He didn't need to. It just sat there, rusted and dented and magnificent, with a coffee can lid for a radiator cap and a plywood seat covered with a horse blanket. And every engineer who walked past it stopped and looked and understood. The pump Floyd built in 1967 is in the County Historical Museum now. There's a plaque next to it that reads, "Built by Floyd Hessler, Korean War veteran, Atchison County farmer, used during the floods of 1993, 2011, and 2019. This pump moved more water than machines that cost 100 times as much, because its builder understood that the problem was never the water." The Army Corps Challenge coin is in a shadow box on the wall of Tyler's kitchen, next to Floyd's Purple Heart and a photograph of Floyd sitting on the WC in 1954, the year he came home from Korea. In the photograph, Floyd is 24 years old. The tractor is 16 years old. They are both young. They are both whole. They are both ready for whatever comes. The WC is 88 years old now. Tyler starts it every spring, lets it run for an hour, checks the oil, checks the coolant, greases the fittings. The engine turns over on the second try. Always the second try. Some machines are built to be replaced. Some machines are built to be upgraded. Some machines are built to be obsolete before they leave the factory. And some machines are built by men who understand that the world will always send you a problem that your manual didn't cover. And the only machine worth having is the one that doesn't need a manual. Floyd Hessler knew that. The river knew that. The WC knew that from the beginning.